Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Harris. I will be teaching Transaction Desk today in Authentisign. And it looks like we still are waiting for quite a few to come in. So I'm going to give them a few more minutes before we get started. But meanwhile, if you want to go ahead and at least make sure you're logged into your Paragon. We're going to be starting in Paragon today. And what we'll be doing with Transaction Desk is going over the purchase agreements. We'll start off with creating a PA. I'll show you about setting up a listing package, and then we're going to actually take it into Authentisign and set it up for a client to sign. So we will be walking through all that today. And then again, like I said, we will go through Transaction Desk. We'll get you through Authentisign. I'm not going to get too deep into it today. We only have 2 hours. So we're going to kind of walk through everything. We'll do another class where we'll separate the two and get a little bit more advanced features in there. Looks like I've got a few more coming on right now. Great. I know that there's a few more that we're still waiting for, and we're going to go from there. So one of the things we'll be doing in Paragon, and the reason I'm going to start there, if you're writing a purchase agreement, you want to pull the listing in Paragon. We do have our little shortcuts in there. We'll be selecting that shortcut. It will pull all the information into Transaction Desk for you. Then you can add your contracts and you can go from there. So that's why we will be starting from Paragon. We'll start off with a listing and then we'll walk through that. And if you look for handouts or you need extra help with anything in Paragon or any of the other sites we use, MLS Documents is at the top of your screen. If you click on that, you'll find under MIRS Education about 80 handouts. There are step-by-steps. We try to put in some screenshots and make it as easy as possible. We try to write them the way we teach them. Okay, so it looks like we've got about 2/3 of our class here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully if someone else comes on, we can catch them up real quick. So again, we're going to start off in Paragon. So if you can go into your Paragon page, and I have a listing we're going to start with. It is pending, but we should be able to still write a an offer on it. And that way you can use an Authentisign and you can send it to me, and I'll know it's not someone actually sending me an offer. So we'll start off in there. Okay, so if you take a look at your Paragon page, and if you want to go ahead and type in the MLS number at the top, if you have a property you're about to write an offer on and you really want to use this now to help it, to make it easier for you, you're welcome to pull that property up too. You don't have to use mine. So the MLS number on this one, and the easiest way to pull it on Paragon, I find, is just going in your power search and typing in the MLS number up here. The number is 50037934. And as you type it in, it should find it for you. It's 21324 John Drive. So you want to go ahead and select that. It should open up the full listing report for you. Okay. So once you have that open, you're going to take a look on the left side of your screen, and you've got all of your little links here that will take you to different sites. We want to go over to Transaction Desk. So you're going to look for this blue square. It's got lines through it, and it says Start a Transaction as you hover over it. So go ahead and select Start a Transaction, and it's going to take us now into Transaction Desk. If you haven't used it on your computer yet, I pulled a new browser just to make sure that I can kind of walk you through this in case you haven't used Transaction Desk yet. It will go through a pre-flight check system just to make sure that everything is turned on the way it should be in order for it to work in your browser. Okay, so once you get to this point, you're going to see Create a Transaction. So when you get to this point, you're going to actually look at, name is already in there for you, but templates. If you have a template, and the templates are set up either by your office, or you may have set them up yourself if you've been in a class, prior to this. What the templates do is they take all the contracts related to a specific transaction. So for example, you can see I have a buyer and listing package down here. So for my buyer package, I'm going to select this, and what it's going to do is pull all the contracts that I need for this client into my transaction. So it'll be just for this transaction. The way you set these templates up are in your settings, and we do have a handout on it. I believe it should be in your handouts. And if we have time at the end, I will show you real quick how to get to it and how to walk through it. If you don't have a template, don't worry about it. Just skip through it. You can add anything you need to the transaction once we get through the wizard, which we'll be walking through in a second. It should say it's coming from my real source, the residential condo, and the MLS number. So what it's doing is actually pulling all the information from Paragon right into Transaction Desk for you. And then it's going to ask you at the bottom, what are you in this transaction? I'm the selling agent. So you're going to select selling agent. And then it'll ask you, do you want to use the wizard? So we want to keep that on, and you're going to select create. And actually, I'm going to put in here just because I want to make sure that I don't confuse this folder with my actual client's folders. So I select create and give it a second. It's going to load into our wizard for us. And the wizard will walk you through its 5 steps. I still use the wizard, even though I know Transaction Desk very well. I can do this in my sleep pretty much. But the wizard will keep things saved for you. So it auto saves along the way. So when your computer decides to freeze on you, something shuts down on you, whatever it might be, or you accidentally, close it out, it's going to save to the point wherever you left off. And then you can go back and pick up from that point. Okay, so here is the first step of our wizard. So if you look here at the top, it's going to give your property address. It's going to show it's an open transaction, the address, your name. And then if you look here, you're going to have the type of transaction address information. That's all being pulled from Paragon. On the right side here, you're going to have the property type, MLS number, a little bit of information about it, comments. We're going to scroll down to the second section where it says listing information, purchase information. So obviously, if you're doing the listing, you'd be typing in the listing price, but since we're writing an offer, we want to go under where it says purchase price. So go ahead and type in what your offer amount is. So you don't need any commas, you don't need any decimals. I'm going to just go ahead and put in an offer in here. And once you type that in, the next one underneath is deposit. I'm going to go ahead and type in the amount, the EMD. So my client's going to put in, obviously we have a crazy market right now, so and it's very competitive, so I'm going to put some crazy numbers up here. Okay, so purchase price, deposit. Now, as you're putting these items in, and once you get to your actual contract, your purchase agreement, and so forth, the idea of filling this information in so it fills in to your contract. So it will be in your purchase agreement, and some of the other information will pull into some of the other agreements that we have in there, and so forth. Okay, so as you scroll past your purchase information, you're going to look at the left side, and it says property includes, property excludes. And here you can type in here all appliances or very specifics, or if there's something that's not included, you can type that in here. So property excludes theater seating. Just throwing some stuff in here right now, just so you can see when it auto-populates into my purchase agreement. Okay, so this is our step 1. If you can see here, it says detail step 1 of 5. You have a previous button and you have a next button. We're going to go ahead and select next to get to the next section. Okay, so now we're into transaction dates. If you notice here, it shows the listing date, and if we go down further, offer date pulls in. And actually, because I already have an offer on it, it's pulling in my information from prior, so we'll just leave it as it is. The important part here as a selling agent is you want to put in your closing date and possession date. So closing date, so let's take a look at this. I'm going to go ahead and put it in for May. I'll throw it in for the end of May. Now, if your possession date is different, they're getting occupancy, this is where you want to change it. Now, I do find sometimes this pulls into your agreements, sometimes it does not. So sometimes it'll auto-populate, sometimes you won't see it in there. You may still have to pre-fill it. But under possession date, if they're getting occupancy, which in my case, my clients are, they're going to go ahead and throw in whatever the end of their occupancy day. So we'll just or whatever it might be. Okay, now be careful at the very bottom, you have to save and exit. If you select this, it is going to pull you right out of the wizard. So you want to make sure you select previous and next at the top. So if you need to go back to change something, you can always hit previous, but you want to select next to get to the. Okay, our next step is going to be contacts. So basically it's going to pull in the listing agent and listing broker. So you should see my information in there. And then you're going to add yourself as a selling agent and selling broker. So mine's already in here, but yours hopefully has already pulled in for you. If it didn't, we're going to add them in. So I'm going to walk you through adding in the different contacts. So at the right here next, you've got the add. Wherever you see a plus sign, you can add additional information. So go ahead and select add. And when you select add, you have an option to do a new contact. You can select an existing contact, which is in your address book in Transaction Desk. It doesn't pull from Paragon, but it is pulling from your Transaction Desk. You can add yourself, and it actually will pull from your Google contacts. So if you don't see yourself on there, go ahead and select add yourself first. If you're already there, you're good. The next thing is we want to add our buyers. You're going to select create new transaction contact. Unless you have written an offer for them, then most likely in this market, you probably have written many, and hopefully it's not the case. But if you're already there, you can select from your existing. I'm going to go ahead and select from a new. So at the top here where it says type, we're going to select the drop-down menu, and I've got my buyer. You want to put in a first and last name. I'm just going to go ahead and put in here fake name, so it's not a real client. And then you're going to add an email address for the Authentisign. We're going to use this for Authentisign. So go ahead and add your email address. So when it gets to the point we do the signing, you can send it to yourself. And as a buyer, you can take a look at it and see exactly what the steps are. It's easier to explain to them when you've walked through it. So make sure first, last name is there, email address. And then the next step I'm going to show you down here is you've got a few things here: preferred signature, preferred initials, and legal name. Okay. So let me explain these. So a couple things here. First of all, legal name. So for example, I have one right now that it is an estate sale. So the seller is actually the daughter. She'll be signing. So I have this written as the name of the owner. So it says actually estate of Theodore. So I have that in this section. Preferred signature, preferred initials. I have her first name and last name. It's the same. I didn't have to add that in. If it's different than what you have written in here, which is going to be underneath your signature line. So whatever you type in here, or the legal name, that actually will show printed underneath your signature lines. Whatever you type in here is your actual signature and initials for whoever you're putting these in for. So if this is not changed, then it goes automatically back to the first and last name. So the same information will appear underneath the signature line as far as their signature itself when they click on the box. That's exactly what appears. So again, if you have a regular buyer, you won't have to change anything. You'll just put in their first, last name, and then their email address. If it is an estate, if they are doing an LLC, that's also a good one. You'll want to put their LLC information in, and then their signature and initials is their actual name. Okay, so that's the only time you have to worry about filling anything in here. You do want to add it to your address book. So if you need to use them again, you don't have to walk through this step again. You can just add from existing. Top right here, we're going to go ahead and select Save. And then you should have Mr. Buyer in here. Okay, so now that we have buyer in, first buyer, if there's a husband and wife or there's a second buyer, we want to add those in also. So we're going to go up to the top here where it says Add. And we're going to add a new transaction contact again. And then we're going to select buyer again. Type in Mrs. Buyer. And then an email address again. If you want to select your own, then you can walk through the same email address. So you can have the same email address for both buyers. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer can have the exact same email address, but you do have to add them individually because as I add this one in, now her name is printed underneath her signature line, and then it will show up with her actual name in the signature itself. So again, you want to make sure you're adding them in separately, but same email is never a problem. Save, and that will save it for you. So now you should have the selling agent is yourself, the listing agent is yourself, or I'm sorry, well, for me, it's myself, but whoever the listing agent is, the listing broker, their office, and then your office. I'm going to actually go in here and change my name here so that way it's not confusing because I'm in here twice. Lisa, so that way when it gets to the point for the signing, as I walk you through it, it's not confusing. So this is a selling agent. And so that way, perfect. Okay. So we're good with that. So if you notice, I did that quick, but if you need to make adjustments, you just click on the name. You can make any adjustment here as needed, and you can hit save. It does also give you options to add an address, identifiers, which is for agents would be their agent ID. Okay, so now that we've got everyone here, I just want to show you real quick. If you had to add someone that was already existing, just to show you how quick that is, you go to add existing contact. It opens up your address book and transaction desk. And I have many in here. Again, I continuously save them, so they're in here. So if you ever need to go back, you can get back to them. You can just type in a name here, and it should locate it for you. And there it is. So it'll find whatever thing they find underneath Lisa, which I've got my name in here a million times. And then you can just add them just by clicking in this box and select add. That drops them right on for you. Okay. To do that. Alrighty, so let's go into our next step. So we just finished our third step. We're going to go into step 4. So there's a next button top right. Select that. And we are now into our forms. So if you selected a template, you're going to notice all your forms dropped in here, which is great. It's a great time saver. So again, I'll show you at the end how you can create your own if you don't have any, or just to create your own because you'd like to use ones that you want specific forms. The nice thing about these is you can reorder them, whatever order you'd like. So right now, like, they usually have the disclosure at the top. I prefer to have my buy and sell agreement. If you look at the left, there's like a little review of it, very hard to read, but you should get 4 arrows. If you left click, you can drag it. So I'm going to move this to the top just to make it easier for me to get to contract. And then you can put these again in whatever order you want. So if you want to move things down, you can. If you got things at the bottom that's more important here, you can drop those up top. So, and there'll probably be things, if your office created them, that you are not going to need for this specific transaction, but you may need for others. I know my office adds everything possibly needed for a buyer side, but again, a lot of the stuff you may not need. So just so you know, it's there. Now, if you want to get rid of it, you do have an option to delete them from this specific transaction. It does not remove it from the template, so you can delete it right from here if you don't want to have extra forms here. If you don't have any forms or you're missing a form, we can add them. So again, you go back to the right of your next, there's that add, click on that. It's going to open up all the forms, and they're going to be in categories, so you'll see where they're coming from. So if your office has forms, you should see a folder for your office, but now you have all the different associations. So if you are GMAR, you can find your GMAR in here, Greater Metropolitan Association of Realtors. If you're a Grosse Pointe board, it's right in here too. So whatever board you might be with, you can go ahead and select it. There's North Oakland. Click on the line once. So here's GMARs, and then it will open up all the forms for you. Once those are open, you can actually select, oops, let me get back to this, select them on the right side of your screen. So as you scroll through here, you should be able to select whatever it is that you're missing or you need. So, and they should be in some type of alphabetical order, so they're easy to find. Another option, which sometimes you don't always find what you need by going through these folders, or it's confusing because they might be named something differently than what you're thinking it is. You can search at the top. So if you look at the top now, if you did open up a folder, there's a back to individual forms. Select that. And then you can type up in here whatever you're looking for. So maybe I need a pool addendum. Yep. They're there. It will actually open them up, and then it will give you where they're from. So this is from my office. These are GMAR. So it'll show you exactly where they're coming from. Then you can select the one you want, and then you will be adding those at the top right here. Okay. So this is a quick way. It's just a search bar here at the top. You can add in whatever you need to. Okay, so if you did add some things, great. If you didn't have any forms in there, just at least get your purchase agreement in there and maybe a couple of disclosures. You don't have to put everything in there since it's just a test, but go ahead and get those added. And once you've selected them, you can hit add. If you open one folder and you need something from another folder, and you don't have to add and keep adding and open this up again, you can come in here and, for example, I say I needed an addendum from GMARS, so select that. Then you go back to the top, hit back to individual forms. If you'll notice, your basket here has 1, so I didn't lose whatever I selected. I can go back now, say, to my office folder, and I can go ahead and select what I need from here. So maybe I need an addendum for their association, for example. You can select that. So again, the basket will keep adding them in for you, and then when you're done, select add. So that's a faster way than adding one and then open this back up again and continue. Okay, so once you've got those in, I'm gonna go ahead and hit select close because everything I need is in my folder. I'm gonna hit no because I don't wanna, I'm gonna actually hit yes because I wanna leave and I don't need those forms. And then we should be back to our forms. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and select next, and we have one more step. Okay, the last step is our documents. So the documents are gonna be anything that is a PDF. My seller's disclosure, my lead-based paint addendum. If you're dealing with a bank-owned property, there might be certain addendums the bank has that need to be signed that are pre-filled. Anything that's a PDF can be pulled in here. Maybe there's a specific form that you use for your transactions. These can be added here. If you pulled it from Paragon, it should have pulled the disclosures for you. I know that they had listings that were coming in from some of the other MLSs. We're not always automatically pulling these. So if they don't, you'll need to actually go back into that, go back into Instanet for that specific property, or actually the listing itself. Actually, you can just go to Paragon and then go to your D for your documents right here. And once you open those, you should be able to download those right onto your desktop, and then you can upload those right back in. Okay, so if they're not pulling, they were working on that, they'll hopefully have them auto pull. Honestly, I haven't tested it to double check, but if it's not pulling, save them on your desktop, and then when we get to this point, we're going to add them. So again, there's your add and plus sign. Select that, and you have two options here. You can either click in here, and it will actually search your computer. So wherever you placed them, so if I go to my downloads, it should open them up for you. And then you can go in and find whatever it is that you need to add, and then you can drop that right in by selecting it. Okay. Report here, I'll put that in to show you. Another way to do this is if you select add and you open up the folder where your documents are. So at the bottom of my screen, I've got a folder here that I can open up. And I can go right into my downloads right here. And then I can actually just come in here and I can drag it in this way. Now, the nice thing about doing it this way is I can select multiple. So let's say I want to pull a couple of these. You hold your control button. I selected 4 of them. I can now actually drag them right in and drop them all 4 together. So this is a faster way to get multiple in, okay? And then it should drop them right in here. You have a little trash sign here, so if you don't want them, I'm actually going to remove them because they have nothing to do with this transaction, so we'll get this out of here. But you can delete anything you need to right from here. So that's your documents. So again, anything that's a PDF can be pulled into here. Anything pulled into documents are things that you're not going to be typing up like your forms. So if you need to make changes, you do have options to do text boxes when you get to the point where you can type into, when you set up your signature lines, you can type in sections, but you can't pre-fill. So if you have a purchase agreement, you don't want to pull it in as a PDF in here because then you actually have to put a text box for every section, fill it in, where under forms, they're already preset for you and those boxes are open. So you can fill them in. Okay, so we just walked in all 5 steps. So those were the 5 steps of our wizard. We're going to select done at this point. Okay, so once it's done, it's going to take you back to your dashboard. Now, a couple of things I want to point out. On the right side of your screen, if you don't see all these little sections, there's these 3 lines, opens and closes it. Here at the top right. So the first one is wizard, which we did already. And then you have all the different sections, which we actually walked through the first 5 of them. So on this dashboard, you also have shortcuts for these sections. So it's pretty much the same thing you're seeing here on the right. It's just showing shortcuts here on your dashboard itself. So instead of selecting on the right, I can go into a section here. And the reason I like these shortcuts is I can actually see what's in each section. So under forms, I can scroll through this and see what forms are in here. If I need to open this up, I have an option to go to forms right from here. If you select go to forms, it takes you right back here. And then here's all my individual forms that were added to this transaction. To go back to the section we were on, you select dashboard on the right side of your screen. And it takes you back here. Now, yours probably looks a little different than mine. Mine is customized, so I added some extra sections in here. So if we have enough time at the end, I will pick you back through this and we can add additional ones in here for you. Make it a little bit easier. So this is your dashboard. So we're going to actually walk through a couple things here that we just did in the wizard, just so you can see how it works in the sections here. So we'll start off, we're at the dashboard already. Again, the wizard, if you accidentally hit save and exit, or you're in the dashboard, you need to get to your wizard, all you do is select wizard. And it takes you back to the 5 steps that we just walked through. And then it takes you back. So in step form, and we'll hit done again. So then it takes you back to your dashboard. Underneath dashboard is details. That was step 1 of your wizard. Go ahead and select that. Once that loads, you can see this was a step where we added our offer amount and our EMD. Those were dropped in here. And also I added actually appliances in this section too. Okay, to the right again, if you go to contacts, you should see now listing side, selling side, and buyers should be in here also. If you need to make changes to any of these sections, you can click on your client right from here. And you can go ahead and make any changes that is needed, hit save, and you should be all set. You also have these 3 dots that pop up now. So you can edit your client, you can activate their dashboard, which opens up the section we were just looking at, You can email them and you can delete them right from here. You need to add more, always again, look for that plus sign and that add. You can select that and you can add whatever is needed at this point. Let's go back to the right, forms. Again, that was our step 4. This is all the forms that we have for this transaction. Again, your add button's up here if you need to make a change. You now have additional options under these 3 dots here on the right. You can preview a form. So if you select preview, it should pop up a little preview of that form. So if you're not sure if you select the correct one, you can take a quick peek right from here. If you select this again, you can download it. When you download that form, it is now a PDF, so it's locked. You can't do anything with it. As long as it's under your forms, it's an open document, so you can make changes as needed. You can delete it. You can rename it. Once you rename it, it does also create it as a PDF. You can add a lock to it. You can edit your form. I can email this. I can send it to a fax. I can copy it. We have an option to slice and markup, which I will show you also. When you do a slice and markup, it's also going to turn to PDF. So if you're doing these items, you'll want to make sure you have everything filled out before you're making changes to it. I can also pull it right into Authentisign, and I can see the history. That's everything I've done with that form. Again, most of these, when you select them, again, it's going to take you into PDF. So most of these items you won't do until later if it's needed. Okay. All right, so that is our forms. We're going to go back to the right. You have signing. So signing is where we'll be doing Authentisign. Back in the day when we first had Transaction Desk, it was 2 separate sites that you went to. Now everything's all in the same. So your signings are right in here, which is great because it pulls your contacts, it pulls your forms, everything is in here for you. And at the end, we will walk through this. The next is our documents. And documents, again, are PDFs. So we have our lead-based paint disclosure. We have our seller's disclosure. Also have a checklist here. And what the checklist does is allows you to add items as maybe even reminders. It will send you email reminders and so forth. Add is up here in the top right. Got that. And I can add a checklist item or add checklist. And it's going to allow you now to walk through the steps to add different ones as needed. So I don't have any set up in here. So you would have to go in and actually create them, and then it set those up for you. Again, it's just another way for you to set up reminders for yourself, things that need to be done with the transaction and so forth. Okay, so let's do, next it's call logs. So this might be good if you have, maybe you're working on a team and you want to be able to keep track of conversations you've had with your clients. So you can select add, you can put in the caller's name, the subject, and any message you might have about that. So that all comes in here. Out. Service orders. Okay, service orders allows you to add additional people to this transaction. That might be like maybe a title company, a mortgage company. You can type what it is, appraiser. All their information can be added in here, their address and so forth. Okay, I'm going to close this out, and then you can do the details. You can add the documents. You can keep, like I said, reminders about everything that needs to be done with this transaction. There's many options in here for you. History. Again, the history will give you what's been done with this transaction. So if you notice right now, everything that we've done is showing up here. So document removed, those were the ones I added as a PDF. My document was uploaded and so forth. So as you go through here, if you need to go back to check something, you can. It's all right in here. Okay. Next thing is going to be our title order. So you can actually put in the information needed for your title work. So I can add in here. You can make it your title company you normally use. You can include documents to them and so forth. You can send things to them to get things moving. Marketplace, this gives you additional sites. Honestly, I have not used this. This is something newer. But we have additional items in here, I guess, that we have access to. And again, I'm not sure if these or if there's additional things on here, but this is something that we have. It looks like a new option. So I'll have to look more into that. But our additional classes on here, I'll have more for it. Okay, so we've walked through all the steps here. We're going to go ahead and go back to our dashboard. And once you get back to your dashboard, we are now going to fill in our form. So we have walked through the steps and added our forms. We've got our disclosures, we have our contacts, we now have to fill in our forms. So under your forms, if you don't have them here, you can also go under here. We want to go ahead and select one of our forms. I'm going to start off with our purchase agreement. And I just want to take you through quickly how to fill those out. So I'm going to select my buy and sell agreement. It's going to take you into a form editor. And this is where you will fill in all the information that is missing. And you can see what auto-populated at this point. So you can see my buy and sell agreement. It has my listing side, selling side, and it's going to have description about the property. It should have my price, what's included, what's excluded. If there's concessions, again, some of this didn't fill in, so I can just start typing things in as I go. Closing date pulled in. And you can see things that need to be check marked didn't, so I'll have to go in and kind of select those as I go. My EMD pulled in for me. And then your mortgage information. In the wizard, you can add in your mortgage info. I'm not sure on your contracts. I know on mine it doesn't auto-populate, so usually I just fill in when I get to this point. So now put in, conventional mortgage, amount of spent, putting everything down, whatever the terms are, and so forth. So once you have this filled in, and again, we don't have to go through all of it right now, you have a file folder here at the top left of your screen, and you want to go to save, and the very first one that says save. Now, there is an option to save as PDF, but once you do it, it's going to download it and it's going to lock it. We want to keep it in forms right now, because when we're done with it, we'll pull into Authentisign, then it will create as a PDF, and our client can sign it at that point. But you just want to go ahead and fill everything in, make sure you save. Now, it's supposed to auto-save in this section. I get a little nervous, so I do continuously hit that save. Just from habit, I've had things shut down on me and not save, so I try. So you do have the save button in there, just select as you're done with one. Once you finish one contract, you have an option to go to the top and pull the rest. You have transaction forms in the center here. If you click on that, all the forms you have selected for this transaction are right in here for you. You go ahead and select the next one, and it should load it right for you, right here onto this page. Now I can go in here and fill in whatever's missing at this point. Okay, and you can fill it in and go through this. You'll notice too, under your signature lines, sometimes those type in your client's signature. Sometimes their name actually, not their signature. And then so it depends if it auto-calculates that. If it doesn't, you can go ahead and fill that in from here and select obviously your buyers. And then just make sure you're hitting that save button when you're done with it. All right, so all your transaction forms are in here. You select them as you go. Also at the very top of your screen, you have a couple options that you can modify. So first thing to the right of file, well, let's look at file first. There's other options in here. First thing is new. If I am missing a form, I forgot to add it, I can add it right from here. I don't have to log out of my form editor. I can go right into new. It's going to open up all my forms again. It should open up sections with the different folders here with Association My Office. I can select whatever is needed, and then you can hit OK, and that's going to drop it into your transaction form for you. Under File, Open Form, it's also the same thing as transaction forms. It just opens one of the forms we've selected already. We went through Save, Copy. I can make a copy of this, and I've used this when I've had addendums in here. If I need another general addendum, for example, I like doing this because I can drop in my contract date automatically and make sure everything's auto-populated, and then I'll just change whatever information I had in the addendum, because a lot of times I'll have to go back and find my contract to figure out what date everything was signed, so it just makes it a little bit easier for me. And then I make all the client's names are in there, including seller. And so that's a copy. Erase. I can erase all these pages. Be very careful. You can also erase your current page. Watermarks. Watermarks you could use, for example, maybe I'm sending something to an attorney review for their client. I might want to drop in draft on there so they can see, and it's really light. I'm not sure if you can see it on your screen, but draft will allow them to see that this isn't the final copy. We want them to review it. And then when you go back to File, Watermark, I can remove that draft. Under File, Remove, which will delete this form. You can print it. You can send it to an email, a fax. Documents are where we uploaded our disclosures. So if I want to send this as a PDF into there, I can. You have Help and you have Save and Exit. When you hit Save and Exit, it actually pulls you out of the Forms editor and goes back to your dashboard or the Forms folder, wherever you were. So that's your file. Fonts. You can change the fonts in here. Now, be careful with fonts because it's going to change everything on this page and the sizing. So fonts usually no problem, but the sizing itself can be. So if you are making this much larger, you'll notice that sometimes it may cut off certain sections. So just be careful, just double check it. But it does change everything. So I can't just change one line to a certain font. It's going to change everything on here. So we're going to switch that back because that's a little extensive. I did have an agent tell me he would change the color of his text. He would drop it in red. So that way his client would see everything that he filled in. The only issue with this is when you send it to your client, it's going to be the same way. Now you can print it obviously in black and white, but they are going to see it all in red. And if you send it to, because it turns into PDF, it's going to make it red at the end of the day once they do sign it. So I'm not sure if I would keep it at red, but again, you have an option to use any color you'd like. So those are your colors and your fonts. You also have an option to make it all uppercase, lowercase, and make it a title. Okay, so those are your font options. Clause. If you have a clause created, and what the clause are, is an area that you might use something over and over again. So I have a few clauses. I'm going to show you an example. In order to select it, you have to go down to a section that has a multi-line box. So for example, other terms and conditions, I have multiple lines that can be filled in here. So then I can select clause. I have personal clauses I've created. And some are like septic and well. I have appliances. I have concessions. So maybe I want to use my concessions. So I'll drop it in there. And then let's see, maybe I want to drop in about the EMD. I have a few that I've created myself, and there's actually a few in here my office did. So this is what I have in here. You can create as many as you want. I will show you at the end where to find these. Your office might have some. So let me see. You go under office clauses. So here's a few that my office has. So you can actually select one of these, and that'll drop them for you too. Okay. So these clauses are just a quick way to drop in information that you might use over and over again in specific contracts. So, but you do have to select a multiple line, and then you can select your clause. We already looked at transaction forms. Obviously, that's everything that's in your folder. The book takes you from page to page. So all it does is if it's a multiple page form that you're looking at, I can now select page 5 and it will move it to page 5 for me, or 2 and it moves it back. Just a quick way without having to scroll. You can magnify and go up and down. Now I use this magnifier when I use Transaction Desk on my phone. It's very hard to read. So I like to have that so I can actually read my text and everything. Otherwise it's impossible to read. Okay. To the right of this is your markup tool. So you've got a couple things in here. I usually use these when I'm in Authentisign, and the reason I do is because in Authentisign, I can pull over my initials for my client to make sure the initial changes I make. Now, things like highlight and stuff might be good in here, but I'm going to walk you through what these do. So first thing is a strikeout. So if I select strikeout, that's actually going to remove something. So let's say at the very beginning here, we have something about our seller paid home warranty. So maybe I want to remove that. Again, with this market, you don't want to ask for too much. So through here, break out, and you're going to actually just select a line. I'll drop it right through here. You really have to do a second one for the second line. But again, you want to make sure your initials for your client is next to these, and make sure obviously that the seller's going to initial them too if they accept your offer. That's your strikeout. Okay, so if I go to line, this might be also to line something out or to underline something. I guess you could use it too. So if I want to use this one, it's the same thing pretty much. It creates a line. So I can drop it wherever I want to. Once you have this line in, click on it and I can move it down. So maybe I need to underline something. I can do that. Now with this line, if you click on it and it's highlighted and you right click, it's highlighted, I have an option to change how thick the line is, and I can change the color of it. And I can also delete it right from here. Delete. For this one, once you right click on it, you also have the same option. So if I want to make it click and click the line and make it red and thicker or whatever I might want to do, I have that option from here. You have to right click to get those options to pop up. So again, you can whatever at that point. And if you want to get rid of it, Once you click on it, right, you always have to left click first to select it, then right click to open up this box, and you can delete them. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these. Okay. The other markup tools we have, highlight. Maybe I want to highlight something to make sure that either my buyer sees that it's in there or the seller sees this information is there. So I want to make sure they understand that we are requesting a 1-year home warranty paid by them. So once you click on it, it's going to highlight it. Now I'm going to right click, and I have an option to change the color. And I have an option to change the opacity, how dark I want it. I want it darker. There it is. I want to keep it in the yellow and make it darker there just so you can see it. Okay, so this will show up on the contract when your seller signs or your buyer signs, and then it will show up as a PDF. So then I'm going to go to the seller. Again, you've got a delete button right there. Under your markups, redact. So what this does is it puts stars on your whole paragraph. So for example, if I want to select this seller paid home warranty and remove it without doing a line, I can do this and it basically throw stars in there. Now the only downfall with that is you can't read what was selected or what was removed out of the contract. So sometimes this may not be exactly what you want. You might like just a line so you can kind of read what was taken out. But if you want something that removes it quickly, this is a fast way to remove a whole paragraph. Again, if you left click, right click, I can delete it now. That's the only option you have this. Under markup again, you have an annotate. This is where you can type things in. So I might want to add something in here where it's not open for me to actually type into. So let's find a section here where I can't type in here. So maybe under private inspection, maybe I'm going to type something in here. You click in the box and maybe I put in here, let's put in here, pool inspection, say for example, whatever it might be, what it does, it types it kind of off here. So what you're going to do is you're going to left click because it makes this tiny box to start typing in. Then I'm going to enlarge it. Oops. It's a little hard. So you actually need this double arrow, and I can drag it out. Now I can make a line that will fit in here. And I can typo. Once you click in there again, you can fix your typo. Okay, so once you have it the size that you want, now I can right click. And you have a couple options here. So you can change your background. Now, the reason you would change it from transparent to white, maybe we have an offer we sent to the seller and they're doing a counter offer and we're doing a counter offer, whichever way it might be. The white will actually cover whatever's underneath it. So if I need to change the price, for example, and I already have a price in there and there's not enough room sometimes to write it in, or you don't want it all over, you want it in that box, I can make it white, because what happens with the white box, click off, you select it, I can move it and you can see now it will cover anything underneath it. So it covers all my type under. So if your box is white, it's going to cover. Now, if you keep it transparent, go back to my transparent, the nice thing about if you're not trying to cover something, make sure it stays transparent, because the reason is if I have a small box to fill in, small area, you can see if I keep it transparent, if the box goes over and under, it won't actually remove things on the contract where you're not able to read it. So we want to make sure they can still see what's underneath it. So that's the transparent. Also, I can change my font. You've got just 2 options here for your font, which personally in Helvetica I think looks better. The font size. So a lot of times I try to match this up so you can read it. So it's the same, sometimes a little bit bigger than what's in there. If I make the change, I want to make sure it's highlighted, or I try to at least match up what I have. And then I like to make it bold just to make sure it stands out, so the change is seen right away. And you can also change the color if you want to. Okay. You can make it italic. So you do have a couple options in here. So that is all under your markups, and that's your annotate. Now in Authentisign, you can do the same thing. I do my text box in there. I'll type in what I need to, and then I pull in my client's initials so they can initial the change. So you can do it either way. I always worry that I'll forget that I typed something in, especially if the type looks similar, and I don't want to miss my initial line. So that's why I usually wait till I get assigned to do that section. Okay, so if you don't want this item, you can right click and you have an option to delete it. I'm just going to leave it in here just so we can see it. Okay, so those are your markup tools. Clear all will remove everything you just did here. All right, and then you've got assign and save and exit. So we're actually going to just save and exit out of here since we've gone through all the sections. And we're going to go back to our dashboard. So you can go here to the right, or you can also go under File and Save and Exit. So let's go back. All right. Okay, so now we are back to our dashboard, and we are going to go into a few things here before I take you into, I want to take you into one other thing, and then we can do our signings. So a couple of things down here I want to show you under this dashboard. When you do these shortcuts, you have a couple of different ones. So the first thing is these ones that show everything that's in the folder. And actually, I think we've got a few minutes. I'm going to show you how you can add these in. Then you have ones that are these blue ones right here. So what these are just sections that takes you to that section. So for example, Authentisign, I can't see my signings here, but this takes me right into Authentisign. This box here where it says Authentisign is empty, these are actually my signings where I can view them. I prefer to have these in here. These are also other shortcuts. And again, with this whole section, everything is here on the right. So you don't have to have additional if you don't want to. But I'll show you real quick because we do have, it looks like we're doing pretty good on time. So I'm going to go ahead and show you real quick how to add or remove these. So if you look here at the top, you've got your lock and unlock. The transaction status is right up here. This is to save. So if I change the name, I hit this check mark and it saves it. And then we're going to go here, and you also have an option to delete the transaction. Teams and sharing is an option. You can make notes, you can duplicate it, you can apply templates, you can create a template, import data, archive, and change the status. So you have a couple different options that you can do right here. But we're going to go down here where it says transaction dashboard. See this little lock? We're going to unlock it. When you do, you're going to look here underneath, and if you notice, I now have these blue and green sections. If they're blue and green, that means it's already on my dashboard. If it's not, actually it's the opposite, I'm sorry. If it's blue or green, it's not on my dashboard. If it's whited out, that means it's already there. So I've got my create, I've got email docs. I can drag these and move them on here, and I'll show you how it works. I'm going to actually zoom out a little bit here for you, just so you can kind of see my dashboard. It's a little tricky because it does kind of move the other boxes around. So for example, if I want this forms, now the blue will take the shortcut to take you to that folder. The green shows you what's inside the folder. So you can see it's just now turned everything kind of blue here. So if I look, it dropped it to the bottom of my page. So what I can do, you have this little green triangle. I can actually drag it out, whatever size I want. And then to move them, you have 4 arrows, and you can actually move them around. And then it puts them in whatever order you want them. Okay. So that's how you change these. And you don't have to do this right now. I just wanted to at least show you how to do it. So later on, when you come in here, you can walk through it. So that is, so I'm going to actually put mine back. If you put something in you don't want, you notice you've got that X, you just click on it and it removes it. I'm going to move these back in the order I had them. Let's see if it lets me. Here. And sometimes if it doesn't let you put them where you want, just resize them. Because we'll usually back in. There they go. And I'm going to put my Authentisign. So I have my detailed overview back there, and I'm going to put my Authentisign right back here. So I do like the green sections because I can see what's in my folders. But again, sometimes the spacing, you don't have as much, so you can add a quick shortcut for you. Okay. So again, it's just this under transaction dashboard. You just have to unlock it, and then you can drag them. There are other items here. You can scroll through and find them all. And then when you're done, you can just hit lock, and it removes it. It actually saves what you've done, and it closes it out for you. All right, so that's how you make changes to your dashboard. Okay, so we are good with this. So I am now going to walk you through the steps on the left, and then I want to take you through a listing side. So if you look on the left side of your screen, you should have 3 lines up here. So you'll see the little icons, but if you hit those 3 lines, you're now going to be able to see what is underneath each one for the icons. First one's your dashboard. It's going to be your transaction dashboard for everything that you have in the system. So it gives you shortcuts, and then it gives you some sections that actually shows you what's in them. So you've got your transactions in here, the property addresses. They'll show you different forms, Authentisign, and documents. And again, you have it unlocked. You can actually add different ones, move the order, whatever you'd like to do here later. We're going to look underneath to the left. You have a house. These are all your specific transactions, which is this folder right here. It's going to open it up for me, and it's going to give you all your transactions by property address or whatever way you have them named. So here's all the properties in here. If you need to make changes, you have to the right these 3 dots. You can go to the dashboard of that transaction. You can see the details, details on the transaction. You can see the contacts, the forms, the documents, the checklist. What it basically does here is takes you back into this transaction. You can also click on it and get it where we were at, just looking around. It will take you back to the same section. But that's a shortcut to get to a specific one. You can change the order of these by check marking them. You can put them in different orders, and you can also filter them. You have a filter option where I can come in here, and what it does is it opens up whatever I'm looking for. Now, in order for this to work, you're going to want to modify those transactions. When you open them up at the top, you have the open option here, what type of transaction is. All these items here coincides with you doing a filter in that section. So if I go back to the left with the house, you want to make sure that you make a change here. If this is a closed market, whatever it might be, you can make on there, and then you can filter them to find them, or you can just type in property address and you can find it that way. We're going to go back to the left of our screen. Underneath your house, you've got a pen. This is your Authentisign. So every signing you've done will be in here. If you see a ribbon, that means it's been a completed signing. If you see something that has, let's see if I have some that show that are not completed, like this one. This one is in Wizard. That means it has not been sent. Then you have some that show in progress. That's my Wizard. And those are probably ones I've done for classes I never completed. But you will see it has a different icon if it's been sent and your client has not signed. That means it's in progress or someone didn't sign it. So you can tell the difference by those icons. But anything with a blue ribbon is completed. Those are all your signings. Again, these 3 dots gives you an option to see the signing, the history, and to delete it. All right, let's go back to the left of our screen under your pen. You now have your forms. These are all the forms that you have available by section. So your office, your association, those are all in here. We're going to go back to the left. You're going to look at this file drawer. This is your documents. So anything that's a PDF, once you complete a signing, it goes into your documents. If you save something, it goes into PDF, it goes into your documents. Anything you upload, like your disclosures, are documents. So when you come in documents, you can go to transaction folders. Let's see if mine opens here. And there it goes. And in here, you might have different transactions. This is viewing 1, but I'm going to go back to the transactions. I should have quite a few in here. Just taking a second, probably because I have too many here there. So every time you start a transaction, it automatically creates a folder for you in your documents and also in this little file box. In here, it will drop, again, your completed Authentisigns and so forth will be in here. So I'm going to pull one that I know is a completed transaction that you'll see quite a bit in. So, Siri. And when I open this up, you can now see anything that's been uploaded, disclosures, but you can also see my signings. And the reason you know it's a signing is you have this little green lock here. It's been certified and digitally signed. You'll know. So you just look at those little icons, it tells you what it is, but there's quite a bit in here. So again, it drops everything in for you automatically. You can head back to transaction folder, get you back to all your documents in your file box. And if you need to remove things, you do have an option to delete them. Now, in order to delete them, I believe in here, you would actually have to, this will let me select it from here and it doesn't. I'm going to have to actually go into the transaction itself and delete it at that point. And then you can delete it. You'll have to select, you'll have a basket here, and the basket will give you different options once the items are selected. And you can remove them. And you can also remove them directly from the transaction. You don't have to come in this folder, but again, this is where you'll find all your PDFs. Okay, so let's go back to the left of our screen. The next step we have is going to be our lists are coming in next. Open. Sorry, a little slow here. If you are a broker or an admin, there are options for broker tools, and I do believe we do classes for admins, so I believe they go through this, but there are options that brokers have in here to make changes that will take an effect for everyone in the office. Under there, you should have tasks. If you have a task and you created one, you will find them in here. You can also add them in here. Contacts, it's going to be underneath that to the left. All your contacts will be in here. So here's your address book, right for transaction desk. You can add more in here. You can actually delete them, you can edit them, you can email them. So everything is in here for you. Okay. Under their partners, so again, this goes back to that marketplace where we're adding additional partners, people involved maybe in your transaction. Again, I have not gone through all this, and I will find out more information about it. I'm not sure if there's additional fees for this, but we will have to find out for that. Okay, the last thing under here, well, actually 2 things left. Settings. So the left is settings, and this is where you can create clauses. This is where you can create their templates. So if you notice here, there's clauses. And if you come in here under personal clauses, this is where you can come in and add a new one. There's an add button here. Once you select add and add new one, you can title it and just type in whatever you want in there. That's all you have to do. It's that simple. That way, when you go into your transaction, you can select the line you want to put it on. It has to be multiple lines. Select the clause, it drops it in for you. Also under settings, you have your templates. And again, the transaction templates, most offices, I believe, have them created. And if they don't, you can create your own, or even if they do and you want your own, you're welcome to do them in here. So under the top here where it says add, you would actually select, it's going to be personal, you'll name it. And is it for a buyer? Is it for, you have to select what type of package. So when you select what your transaction is, it will automatically add that in for you. You put a description, and once you do, it's going to give you an option now to add all your forms. You'll select them, you'll go through every folder and select your forms in there. Okay, so it's pretty simple, and then it will save them, and you'll have a bunch of them here. When you have these in here, if you see some that have 2 people on them, that means the office created them. You cannot modify them unless you are an admin or a broker. If you see just one, those are yours, and now you can go back and modify those as needed. You can edit, you can delete it, you can copy and make another one. So those are your settings. The last thing here is a help with this little question mark. Any help you need is right in here. And also we have obviously all the handouts for you. We have our YouTube, so we've got plenty of help for you also. Okay, so I've walked you through quite a bit. I'm sure I've confused everyone. So we're going to go ahead, and let's get back to our transactions. I want to take you through a listing side, and then we're going to go ahead and actually do a signing. So let's go back to the left of our screen, and we're going to go back to our dashboard. When you go into Paragon and you want to do a listing, obviously, unless you've listed it yourself before, it's not going to show up under Paragon. You're not going to be able to find it, or you'll find someone else's, which you don't want to use their listing. You want to create your own. But under Paragon, again, like I said, with the buyer side, you would go to the listing itself. And what we did is we went to our little shortcut here, and it took us into start transaction. For our listing side, we're going to create transaction right from our agent dashboard. So when you go into Paragon and you're under your resources, you're going to go directly to transaction desk, which is on the right side of your screen here under online forms, transaction desk. This is the view you will see once you click on that. Once you're in here, we're going to select create transaction. Go ahead, and hopefully everyone's to this point. So again, if you've clicked on things and you're all over the place, if you want to close out your dashboard completely, you can. Go to your Paragon, go to your resources, go into online forms and select transaction desk. Back to your main board right here. You know, I've been clicking all over the place, and I'm sure I have you all over. Okay, so for transactions, let's select create a transaction. And the first thing is you'll be naming it. So you can use the property address with your client's name. Because this is a class, I am going to put on here a class test. You can also say same thing, tests, or whatever you'd like to name it. And I'm going to put for listing side, so I know that I create a listing package. Under your templates, we're going to go to our listing package if you have one. If you don't, skip it, and we will add those forms when we get to that point. Then we're going to import data. So even though we're not pulling it from Paragon, we can still pull it from Realist. We can still pull it from tax records. So I'm going to go ahead and select Realist. It's going to ask you what county is this property in. So I'm going to use my listing again. So I'm going to go to Macomb County. But again, if you have a listing coming up, you can select the one that you're using, select your county. And then you need a tax ID number, which most likely you won't have it. So we're going to select this Magnifier. And it's going to ask you for many things. We want to put 2 items in here: street number, street name only. And the reason being is the more you have in here, sometimes it's harder to find it. So it's going to look up tax records under Realist. And if it's not spelled the right way, it may not find it. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my transaction again, 21324. And the street name is John. Now it's John Drive. I'm just going to put John in. Again, if city records or tax records are showing Drive, they may have DR period. They might have the whole word spelled out. If I don't have it exact, it's not going to find it. So again, just the name of the street, just the street number. And then at the bottom, search tax data. Here's the property address. You're going to check mark it. If it didn't pull up the correct property, hit search again. It'll take you back and you can put in the property again. So I'm going to hit tax data. I'm going to select this and I'm going to hit select again. All right, so now my tax ID number is in here. So now it's going to pull the information for me from Realist, not from Paragon. And it's going to add me as the listing agent. And I want to use my wizard again. So go ahead and select create once you have this set. And second, and it's going to now take us to our 5 steps again. Here we go. So same steps that you did with the buy side is the same steps you're going to do with the list side. So it's very easy to walk through this. So I'm going to kind of go through it briefly. There are a couple of things I want to show you here that I like doing for my listing side. So we're going to walk through a couple little shortcuts here too. So you'll see all the information's in here. It's now going to show residential listing. It's an open status, and it didn't pull up my property type, so I'm going to put in here residential. And again, this is the information from Realist, so it looks like I missed, a few things didn't come through. So if you know what they are, you can go ahead and type them in. One. We're going to go down to the second section where it says listing information. Now, this is where we're going to fill in the list price. And you want to put in property exclude specific items. You can put those in here because that'll show up under your contract. So I had my okay. And again, you want to hit that next button, not save and exit. So go back to the top, hit next. Transaction dates. So now we're going to use our list date and expiration date. So say I'm going to list this on Friday. I want to get my contracts ready to go. We're going to try to do a 3-month listing, which the way things are selling, probably won't need that long. So I will go ahead and give it to July, but whatever date you'd like on there. The rest of the items obviously won't pertain to the listing. So we're going to go ahead and select next. And we're going to go to context. Now, since it pulled Realist, it now has pulled my seller. And you can see both of them from the Realist record. So it's pulling the tax records. So both their names. It will also pull you as the listing agent, your office as a listing broker. If it missed your seller, or again, you're dealing with one, like I have one right now, it's an estate sale. It's going to show the actual seller that owns it, but it's not going to show my client doing the, as the executor of the estate. So at that point, I can do one of two things. I can either remove these and add them new, or what I did with my last one, so I have the names, is I actually clicked on it, and then I changed it to estate of, and then I put in my client's name that's signing. So the daughter's name actually went in there, or you can put them under the preferred signature line, but we want to make sure that her name is showing to sign, but typed underneath it says estate of. Okay, so that's what the change, that's how I made the change. And I found it was easier to do it that way. So the correct seller spelling was there for me, and I could just add the estate on there. Again, if there's an LLC, you might want to make the change there. So again, whatever the case is, but otherwise, if it's just a seller, the name is exactly the same as tax records, you don't need to do any changes. The only thing you might need to do in here is add an email address, because most likely it's not going to pull that from Realist records, and unless you add them as a contact because you had them in here before, you'll need to add your email. I'm going to go ahead and add mine, and the reason being is that I am going to actually show you how to do seller's disclosure in here, and for your client to fill it out online. So you do want that email address in here, so I'm going to go ahead and add mine in here so I can do that step. And I'm just going to do it for one. I'm not going to do it for both. Okay, so contacts are in. We're going to select next. Again, you always have your add button here. If something's missing, go ahead and select next. And we get to this point, we've got our forms all in here. So it should be your listing side. If you're missing forms, or if you didn't have a template, walk through the step of adding again. Again, just look for that add and plus sign. We're going to drop in whatever we need to for our listing. So we're going to make sure we add, I like to go to actually my real source forms first, so I can add my data sheets first. So I'm going to go to my residential data sheet, and I want an exclusive right to sell. We'll do residential right up here. Where's it at? Here's my residential. The big thing I would like to make sure you have in here is your seller's disclosure. So if you can get your seller's disclosure statement in there for me, we want to make sure that's in there. So I'm going to go back to my forms for seller's disclosure. Here should be, there it is. So make sure your seller's disclosure statement is in there. That's the main thing I'm going to walk you through when we get to our actual, once we're done with filling everything out for our transaction. Okay, seller's disclosure statement, and I'm going to go ahead and add those in. Mine are already in there. I just want to walk you through adding them in case you didn't have them. Okay, so the next step is going to be, and actually I want a data sheet. Please make sure your data sheet is. There's one other thing I want to show you how to push this over to Paragon. Make sure you have a data sheet. So if you don't, go back to your add button, go either to your office or to your My Real Source, and go ahead and or add that data sheet in. Should be under D, there it is, and residential condos. So go ahead and add those two for me. We're going to go ahead and select next. Since we are doing a listing, I really don't have documents at this point because I'm going to fill in the seller's disclosure and lead-based paint for my client, and they're going to sign those. So under documents, I don't have anything. If there's something specific you use for your clients, you can upload it. If there's something, if it's a bank-owned property and you've got to put in some bank addendums that you're listing for the listing side for the bank, you can upload those here also. I'm going to go ahead and select done. And I'm done with those. Okay, so we have finished putting in the items that we need. Again, back to your dashboard. I'm going to walk you through the two things I want to show you in here. The first thing is your data sheet. When you fill in your data sheet, I fill in as much as possible. And if you either go in here or go under your forms, select your data sheet. Let's open it up in our form editor. I fill everything from the room sizes to the remarks and everything I need in here. And the reason being, even after I meet with my client, they sign, I like to have it in here because I can actually upload this listing right into Paragon. So what's going to happen is I'll pre-fill everything. So for right now, you do need this line filled in. So I'm going to have you fill in a few items because it won't push if you don't. So I'm going to put in here for sale, residential, make sure your price is in here, list and expiration date is in here. I've got exclusive right to sell, it's private owned, and school district. These items need to be filled in too. So I'm going to make sure my school district's in here. Make sure. And then, oops, I don't want Sunday. That's bad. Utica. And then area, make sure your area is in here. When I take you to the next step, if you're missing something, it will let you know. I'm missing quite a few items. I just want to push this as a partial right now. And I know these items specifically have to be in order for it to push. Okay. I basically added in just under all required, the sale, residential, made sure my price, list and expiration date are in. I did put in here private owned, and then I made sure this section for location information was in. Once those items are in, and again, I fill everything in. So if I was missing something before, I make sure that everything is in here that I possibly need. And again, remarks also. Up here in the top right, you have upload listing. So what this is going to do is it's going to take everything I filled in here. It's going to create a partial listing and drop it right into Paragon for you. The reason I do this is because when I want to add my listing in, I now don't have to go in and create a new listing in there and fill everything in. I'm pushing this right into Paragon right directly from here. And you can see it's created a partial. It gives me the number here, and it's not live. It's just going to create a partial. And then I can go back into Paragon, and this isn't just for you, it's even for your admins. If your admins are able to take care of the listings for you and they're putting them in for you, this will save them a ton of time. You just want to make sure you upload it and let them know you have a partial. Then they'll go into Paragon under listings or yourself. You're going to go under maintain partials. Listings, maintain partials. And they're going to find you. So as an admin, they can locate just, your listing. They can see everybody in the office. I'm going to search, and there it is. Now, I didn't have a lot filled in, so it's going to be missing a lot of items, but you'll hit select an action at the end, maintain partial, and you'll see all the items that did pre-fill for me. So it does bring in quite a bit of information, which is great. This is really will save you a ton of time and save the admin's time. And the other thing, I feel that if your admins are filling these in for you and you're setting it up this way, you don't have to go back to make sure there's no typos. If you've already checked it, you've set it in yourself and you uploaded it, you're ready to go, and they can just fill in whatever else is missing. So all I did again is just under my data sheet, you make sure your data sheet's open, filled everything out, save it, because obviously in case something freezes in between, and then upload listing. You're just looking for that little shortcut right there. Okay, so that is, this to me I find is the biggest shortcut, and I use this all the time. The other thing is your seller's disclosure. So I had a situation, my client was in Arizona, he's got a property in Arizona. He had a house here I was selling. He didn't have a computer, he didn't have a way to print anything, he couldn't scan things for me, and I needed him to fill out the seller's disclosure, and I am not about to fill out anyone's seller's disclosure. So you can send it to your client and they can fill it out online. And the way you do this, you're going to go back to your forms, and actually I'm just going to actually close out of this and we go directly from the forms themselves. So I'm going to hit save and exit. And under your forms, you're going to see your documents are right here. So I just want to get into your folder with all my documents. I'm sorry, not my documents, my forms. Under your forms, because this is still an open form, they can fill it out, you can still fill it out. So we're going to go under forms. So under seller's disclosure, it's right here. I'm going to select it. Now, once you select this item, it goes into a basket. When you go to your basket, you can see you have multiple options here. You can sign it, you can copy it, you can actually download it to a zip, you can print it, you can save as a PDF, email, send it to a fax, and delete it. So I am going to email this to my client. So you're going to make sure that's the only form that's selected. I'm going to select my envelope for email. If you have something else you want them to fill in, you can go ahead and fill in as any other items you want. Just whatever you're giving them, you're basically giving them authorization to go directly, it's logging them directly into your transaction desk to that specific form, to the form editor, and they're going to make changes to it just like we were making changes. So just make sure it's things that you want them to fill out, otherwise they might be changing all your forms. So we're going to go ahead and here I'm going to put in my client's name. So I'm going to send this to myself because I will show you how it works. Put the email address. So I would suggest sending it to yourself, and then you can walk through it. Subject line, it always says transaction desk form, but this will say invitation sent from, and it'll have your name on it. You can put in whatever you'd like in here. You can type in a message to them. And the key to this is send as a link. When you send as an attachment, it creates a PDF, it's locked. When you send as a link, it stays as a form. I can now allow editing of these forms. And I suggest putting an expiration date, because if you don't, it stays open. So that means if your client goes back to their email weeks later, goes back to the email you sent them from the beginning, they can go back in and make changes to it. Most likely they're not going to, but I still feel better knowing that it's now locked and they're not going to be going back into the transaction at all. So if I want to give them a couple of days, so it's actually listing on the 30th, so I will give them until the 30th to complete it. And if you want to double check what you're sending them, at the top here where it says information, you have items. And you can see I just have the seller's disclosure. And if you want to do a fax back cover sheet, which if you're sending it this way, you don't need to. What's happening is they're going into transaction desk, they're making the change, you're going to tell them to save it, and then you're going to go back in your transaction desk and it's already completed for you, and you will get email notifications of this as it's being done. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send, and it says your email's been sent. And then I'm going to go into my email and give it a second, and it should come through, but I just want to walk you through how that's going to come up. So again, doing this yourself at least once will make it so much easier to explain to your client, because when you're on the phone with them and they're not sure how to do it, you will at least know visually what's going to show up, so they know what to do. And just give it a second. You might have to refresh a couple times for it to come through. Okay, so here it is. Transaction desk form invitation sent from Elizabeth Harris. So I'm going to select this. And I'm going to open this up. So you can see the email was sent from me. So your name will appear, your office name will appear. It will say the name of the transaction. They can view it. So I've been granted permission to edit these forms. If you don't see this section here, that means you didn't select allow to edit forms. So you missed this part. So you'll have to go back and resend it again and make sure you select to allow them to edit the forms. It shows what form I'm sending them. And I'm going to go ahead and select it. When they select it, I'm going to close my other transaction desk so it doesn't give me an error here. So once it opens up, it's going to actually, it's now logging me into Transaction Desk. It's pulling me into my account, obviously, but it would be the agent's account. And you can, if you notice at the top, they're limited on the information. So we had a lot more options at the top. So they can go to File, they can save it, they can print and exit, they can actually change their font size, they can go from page, move from pages, they can zoom, and they can actually do a strikeout, a highlight, a redact. So it does allow them to add additional items, a text box. So now what they're going to do is you're going to tell them to walk through it, and you're going to explain to them. Yes means that it works, no means it doesn't work, and not available means they don't have it, and unknown, that's, I find, is the biggest mistake most of my clients do, is they know that they don't have it, they're thinking, but they want to make sure they mark not available. Also for appliances, if they're not including them, make sure they put on here not available, because otherwise if they put yes that it's working, that means it's being included in the sale, which we want to make sure there's no confusion there. So I'm going to go ahead and just select a few of these real quick, just because I want to show you the end result. So if you are walking through it yourself, you're welcome to do the same. And then I'm going to type in a few things also, just to make sure that this is showing up when we walk through it. We'll say, okay. And then as I go down further, now, do they have water in their basement? Yes. I'll put on here, grading issue repaired. So then we'll put on here roof approximate age, we'll say 5 years. I just want to show you how this saves. Okay, so when they're done, explain to them when they finish, they just have to go to File, Save, not as a PDF, just save. They can print a copy or they can save a PDF on their desktop, but when they're done with this, you're going to include it in the signing, so they will be getting a final copy of what they filled out. So usually I just tell them go ahead and save it and exit unless you want to keep a copy, you're welcome to. Once they exit, you should have received some emails now. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I'm going to go back to my email box. First one is, it's going to tell me that my invitation's been opened. So it says an invitation's been opened, and it was sent to this email. This person opened it. Here's the seller's disclosure and the date and time that they did it. Now they should be getting another one once it's saved. I take a second. Meanwhile, I'm going to go back into my transaction desk because I closed it out. So I'm going to go ahead and go from resources. And when I go in here, you should be able to now, under seller's disclosure, see the changes that they made. So let's take a look at this. And I'll tell you, this worked amazing for my client. He was very happy with this. So I'm going to go back to the transaction side. And under my forms, and let's take a look at seller's disclosure. Here it is. Let's open it up. And let's see if all of his changes came through. Here you go. They marked things yes, grading issue repaired, 5 years old. So everything that he filled out and saved is right here. If you find your client tells you they did it and you come in here, there's nothing, then they probably missed hitting save. So make sure they might have to walk through it again, make sure they save it. Saving part is really important. But again, this is a great way to send items to your client to fill out, especially seller's disclosure, without having to email it to them, having them to print and download things, scan things, whatever it might be. Now I can include this in my signing. So that will be the step that we'll be doing when we do our actual signings. You'll see where you can add everything in. So that will be included at that point. Okay, so that is the 2 items. I'm going to go ahead and save and exit. Those are the 2 items I really wanted to show you under the listing side. But again, everything in here, I'm just going to click my dashboard on the right. Everything we walk through the wizard, where this is the exact same steps. The difference in this is we started to create a transaction from, you go to the left here, your dashboard. We just started a new transaction, and we pulled realist records, so we could pull tax records and then filled in the rest of the information. Okay, so again, everything else is still the same. All right, so that is the listing side. So I think we've gone through a lot, quite a bit. I just want to see if anyone has any questions before I take us into Authentisign to the next step. So again, just a quick recap. If you're doing a buyer side offer, we're going to go ahead and go right directly from the listing itself. You're going to select your little shortcut right in here. It will take you into Transaction Desk. It will walk you through the steps of adding your template, naming it, which it should be named for you already, and then it'll pull all the information, and then you'll walk through those 5 steps in the wizard. Okay. If you are doing a listing side or anything that you need to do, maybe it is a sales side, maybe it's a for sale by owner. I've had this, I've sold a few of them, and obviously it's not in Paragon. or maybe in Paragon, there I started listing something under the MLS, but if it's not, you can create a transaction directly from here, and you can go ahead and walk through all the steps of creating, for sale. All right, so now we are going to go into Authentisign. So I just want to look real quick. Does anybody have any questions? You can either put your hand up, or if you want to send me a chat, I will answer your question right now, but we did go through quite a bit of stuff. So before I confuse you and add you into Authentisign, I just want to double check real quick. Let's go into Authentisign. For the sake of time, I want to take you right back to our purchase agreement, because we did add our Mr. and buyer and Mrs. Buyer. So let's walk through that as a signing. So go ahead and go back to your transactions. Wherever you're at, if you're not sure how to get back, just click that house on the left side of your screen, go back to your transactions, and we want to go ahead and select our sell side, not our listing side. Go ahead and do your sales side of it. So the one that we pulled directly from Paragon. And in here, we're going to go to our signing. So you have, again, two ways of doing it. If you have a shortcut on your dashboard, you can go directly where Authentisign says, go to signings, or on the right side of your screen, you've got your signings folder. You go in there too, either one. And what we're going to do is go to add again. That add button you're going to see all throughout the system. Anytime you need to add, just look for that. We're going to name our signing. So right now I'm going to put in here offer package, and I'm going to put on here John Drive. You can name it whatever you'd like, whatever is easier for you to remember and to be able to find it. So we're going to go ahead and put under your name it and save. Now Authentisign, just like our transaction desk has a wizard, again, it will save things as you go. It's the easiest way to walk through this. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look. There's 4 steps. First step here is your details. So you're going to have the name that you just named it, and you have 2 ways that you can send this. First thing is sign in line. Sign in line allows you to add all your contacts and put them in a specific order. So for example, I like to add my sign in line. I put in Mr. Buyer first. When Mr. Buyer completes the signing, it will automatically send to Mrs. Buyer. When Mrs. Buyer completes her signing, then it will send to me, because at that point I'll be signing, and I can also make sure that I didn't miss something. And then I can also include the listing agent, and it will automatically CC them and send them a copy of everything that has been signed or the contract. Now, the downfall with doing it this way, if you include your listing side, if you include things for your client to sign that you don't want to send to the listing agent, it's going to send everything. So depending what you're sending them, if you're including some type of buyer agency or something for your office you don't want to send to that listing side, you won't want to include him. So you'll just want to include your actual buyers. Sign side. This allows it to go out to everyone at the same time, to sign at the same time, and then it sends over the completed copy. So you can do either. Now, if I'm in a hurry, maybe there's multiple offers, I will use sign, but most of the time I do use a sign in line only because, again, with us being so busy, I worry that I may have missed something. Maybe I forgot to put concessions in. I forgot to include something my client needs. I like to have it to me last, so I can just double check it one last time, make sure I included all their signature initials. Maybe I made a change and forgot to put an initial line, whatever it might be. I just like to double check one more time. So again, whichever way you prefer, we're going to walk through sign in line at this point. Under participant order, you have advanced options. So let's go ahead and open your advanced options up. So first thing is you can set an expiration date. If you want the expiration date in, you would just hit set and put in the expiration date. Now, if you are on a crunch for time and maybe your client's dragging their feet and you need them to sign this before, multiple offer deadline, I may want to set this as a deadline and then put in a day and time. And that way, if they don't sign in time, they're not going to be able to sign. They're going to have to call me. And that way I can push to them and explain that there is an expiration date. If it doesn't sign by this time, we can't get it in. So you can include if you want to. Under there, you have reminders. I love this option. I like to send reminders in 4 hours and every 4 hours until they sign. Now, the reason I like doing this is I don't have time to call them and follow up a lot of times, or I've got too much stuff going on and I can't make sure that they did what they were supposed to. And sometimes even it's just for myself. My clients will sign. I don't realize they signed because I haven't checked my email. I've been out on showings. This will send me reminders that I have not signed. It will keep sending them until it's signed. And 4 hours is the fastest you can send it. You can't do it like every 15 minutes. And then it's every 4 hours. So yes, we can't bombard them, constantly, but we can at least every 4 hours remind them. The next step is your Authentisign ID position. When your clients sign, it creates this Authentisign ID, and it's stamped on every page that's included in the signing. You can position this wherever you want. Now, be careful where you put it because you don't want it covering anything. I usually like it at the bottom left, only because there isn't much there to cover up. But if you are having them sign again because there's changes on that contract, make sure you move it to the right or to up top, so that way it's not stamping it again, because then it will stamp over the original ID numbers. But what this does is it actually links your client to those contracts that they actually signed on. And then you have an option to hide signature keys. So what it does is it creates these keys wherever they sign, and if you hover over it, it tells you when they signed, the date, the time, and their IP address, which links it back to their computer. Okay, so we're going to go to our participants. So we're going to go ahead and select step 2. There's a plus sign, just click on that. So in here, you should have your buyers. You will have the listing agent and yourself as a selling agent. So first thing is my buyers. I want to include them. So we're going to add Mr. Buyer. He is a remote signer. Now here's the difference. Remote signer is I'm sending it to their email, they're signing. In-person signer, I'm sitting in the house, I've got my iPad or my phone, and I'm handing it to them, and they're going to sign from that. And the reason you want to mark it's in person is because, again, it is keeping track of an IP address. So if it shows your IP address for your signature and then your IP address for your clients, it doesn't look like, it looks like you signed for your client. We want to make sure that's understood. If you put in-person signer, it's actually showing that you are sending it to them. You actually give them a password if they put it in, and so forth. So it does keep track of that. But again, if they're signing from their phone, from their email, anything that has to do with their own property, their own personal belongings, then you want remote signer, even if they're standing next to you. For viewer, this is great if you've got maybe a father, it's a daughter's buying, she's in her 20s, first-time home buyer. She wants her dad to just review everything. You can include him as a reviewer. When it comes to him, though, he's going to have to actually read through it. He doesn't have to read through it, whatever he wants to do, but he has to accept it in order for it to move to the next person or for it to complete the signing. So I know that some agents, I've seen them send it to me as listing agent. They'll send offers as a reviewer. And I think they do that to see if I actually saw the property, I accepted and reviewed it, the actual offer itself. So again, the downfall with that is it does not complete your signing, and no one will get a completed signing until that reviewer accepts it as well. So just be careful with that. If you want to just send it to someone, so maybe you want a copy sent to the father. If you want the attorney to review it, obviously it's important to include him, but maybe you just want a copy sent to the attorney or someone else. CC them. Just select CC only. That means once everyone completes their signing, it will take that PDF and it's going to email them a copy of it, but you're not waiting on it then at that point. Okay, so Mr. Buyer is going to be a remote signer. Mrs. Buyer, I'm going to include her as a remote signer. I'm going to include myself, the selling agent, as a remote signer. If you want to include me on it, so that way you walk through the steps and you can make sure it goes through, you are welcome to send these to me. I'll know that they're not an actual offer since my property is pending anyways, but include me, but just include me as a CC only, or if you want me to take a look to make sure it was done right, you're welcome to include me as a reviewer. Again, whatever way you'd like to. If you don't want to include the listing agent, just uncheck it and just include the other three. Go ahead and select add. If you are missing an email address or something's missing out of these, you will see a red exclamation mark will pop up. You'll want to open that client up, or yourself, whoever it might be, and make sure you've got the email address in there, or there's nothing's missing, the other signature lines. If you need to do an update, you want to change the email, just make sure you select update contact info, and that will save that change for you. Okay, that client's fine, so I'm going to keep it the way it is. Now, the one thing I want to do is change the order. So again, I did sign in line. So the way it has it right now, it has it coming to me first, which I don't want to sign first. I want Mr. Buyer signing first. So to the left, you'll see where the numbers are, and you actually have like 3 lines or 4 lines there. You can go ahead and left click on that and drag them up. So I'm going to make him number 1. I'm going to make Mrs. Buyer number 2, and myself number 3. And obviously, if you're including me, make sure that I'm number 4. If you want to remove someone, you still can. At this point, there's an X. You can remove them. If you want to add someone else, you can hit add participant. You can add someone new that's not showing up on here. You can add someone you've already saved in the contacts under your John Drive folder. You can add directly from your address book, or you can add yourself. So you have options to add more right here. Okay, so we have our participants in. So now we're going to go to step 3. So we're going to select there. So now we're at the part where we're going to select what we want to include in our signing. Okay. So two things you want to look at here. First of all, we're going to look at the source. So if you look at these and it says forms, these are the items that you actually opened up and filled in. These are your forms that you have in your transaction. Anything that says documents, these either pull directly from the listing, which is your disclosures, or you uploaded them. They are PDFs, your things that you can make changes to. So I find later on, like if you're adding in, say there's a counter offer from the seller and they bring this back in, you upload it back in the transaction and it shows the same name. It says purchase agreement or buy and sell agreement. It gets confusing. It's like, wait, which one? Look for documents, because at that point, you've now pulled in a PDF that changes have been made. You need to initial or bottom line, whatever it might be. But the document one is going to be the one that's been signed already. So not the forms. These will always stay open. So if you send it, they want changes made, I can go directly back into my forms in Transaction Desk and make the change I want to. And then I can come back into Authentisign and create a new signing. And then I can have a nice clean buy and sell agreement if it's been all mocked up or they've made a lot of changes. But all right, so for this sample, we want to make sure we include everything we want for our signing. So I'm going to include my buy and sell agreement I filled out, my disclosure. I'll throw in my guarantee. Let's see what else we have in here. I want to include maybe I want my wire fraud. We've got our COVID forms, so many more forms now. We'll do that in here. Okay, so at the bottom, I want to include my seller's disclosure and lead-based payment. So those are added. So just check mark whatever you want to include and select add in the top right corner. Second here to load. Okay. So once it loads, a couple things you're going to notice. First of all, you've got area here at the top. You can add more documents. You can assign a checklist item. You can apply a layout. Apply a layout, what it does is it adds in initials and signature boxes wherever they're needed for that specific form. Some of these are already created for you in Authentisign. You can create your own. You can go in there and actually create these. So, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. If you notice, some of my pages here have got little yellow squares on them. If they have the yellow squares, that means the layout has been applied. So that means there are signature and initial lines that have been dropped in for me already. If they don't have any, there isn't any. Now, if you want to check to see if you have any, what you do is you select Apply Layout. And you're going to select which one of your forms. So for me, like disclosure regarding agency relationship did not pull up. So I'm going to select that one. And then the layouts are going to be underneath here in this drop-down menu. So select that. I've created, now what I did with mine, I created two. I have one for buyer, one for seller. So what I have to look for, I renamed it. I named it to the buyer disclosure agency, so I know the difference. So here it is. So that way it's putting in the boxes for my buyer, not for the seller. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then it should drop in your buyers and yourself if you have one in there. You can always change these two if it's incorrect. Okay, or if you want to ignore it, if they're not signing for some reason, whatever it might be. Select apply, and that will drop it in. Now, if you don't have anything in the layouts, don't worry. You know, if we will be creating some, I'll show you once we get to that section. But again, you can add these as you go. The one thing that is going to be hard to add when you're writing a purchase agreement, to create these for disclosures and lead-based payment and seller disclosure, those are so difficult to save, because the reason when they pull in, they might pull in as separate forms. They might pull in as one file with multiple forms and other forms in between. When you're creating these signature initial lines, it's actually matching up those boxes by the page, by the name of the contracts and the page numbers. So it doesn't know that it's not the correct contract or the correct, page of the form. So adding something that's a PDF and to apply a layout to it is a little more difficult. But anything that you've created, all your forms, we can. So let's go down to the next step. After, I just want to show you one more thing. You can reorder these. So to the left of the number, you can change the order. So if I want to move something up or down, you can drag it. And that way, when the signing comes to them, it's in that specific order. If you want to remove something, your X is right there. You can remove it. I'm going to go down to my very last step, and we're going to select the design. So go ahead and select step 4, design. And it looks like someone sent me a question. Let me look real quick. Let's see here. I'd like to upload the pre-approval here as well. Absolutely, you can. You can upload anything you'd like. So when you are under your forms, let me go back a step. So David asked if he about adding in the pre-approval. Great, that's a great thing. I usually try to do that as well. So what you're going to do is right from here under your documents, I can select add documents. Let me just show you real quick. You have lots of options. I'm sorry, I should have showed you this. So this section is where the forms are in the documents for that specific transaction. So if you've already included it under your documents, you can select that and go under documents. It should be at the bottom, which I didn't include it. I forgot to. So for example, I can now add document, and I can select from which forms are the ones you fill in we don't want. You can select from transaction documents, which that means it would have to be in transaction desk, which it's not. If it's under your Google Drive or Dropbox or OneDrive or Box, you can select those and it'll have you log in and pull it. But typically it's going to be on your computer. So I'm going to upload a file, and I'm going to go to my downloads, and then I'm going to find my pre-approvals. So I'm sure I have some in here. I'm going to drop one in here. Let's see if we can find. Select enter. Just need my pre-approvals from here. Okay, I want to pull a pre-approval. Let's name something else. Find. Here it is. So let's just pull a pre-approval letter. Oh, I don't want to open the preview on it. I just want to find it. Here we go. Okay, drop it in. There it is. It's going to load it. It's not his pre-approval. It doesn't matter since it's a class test. And there it is. So now dropped my pre-approval letter in here. Okay, great point, David. Thank you for mentioning that because I meant to open that to show it. So thank you. So again, you can add any documents you need just by uploading right from here too. Okay, great. So now let's go to our last step, which is design. And we're going to go ahead and open that up. So now it's going to open up. I have 20 pages in my signing. And you can add things that aren't being signed. So again, the pre-approval, I don't need any signatures on it, but now I've included it. So if I've included a listing agent, they're getting everything together. Okay, so I'm going to zoom into this a little bit here to show you. All right, so let's walk through this. So you have 20 pages here. So you can basically scroll through each page. And as you go through, you're going to notice initial boxes. All right, I'm going to go to the last page. And you have the signature boxes. If you have them already applied here, then you want to double check and make sure they went in the correct space. Now, I know sometimes they change contracts or they update them, and then all of a sudden you come back and your template layout's not working because now these initials and signatures aren't in the right spot. So just watch for that, but I always walk through and make sure everything's in here correctly. Now I'm missing some things as I'm going through this, as I'm looking at it. I'm missing like my dates in here. Some things are not selected. Not everyone has got their name. Some do have their name underneath, but some didn't. So I'm going to walk through now and make the changes I need to. So let's walk through the items you have in here. If you want to take a couple minutes while we do this and put these in, then I can help you save these as templates. So next time you come in here, it will be saved for you and you can apply it if you don't have the template already. Or if you don't like the template that's been created in here, you can create your own. So I'm going to walk you through this. So let's go ahead and look at our options. So look at the right side of your screen at the top. First thing is you have your signers. So if you click that drop-down menu, you should have Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, yourself, or whoever else is included for the sign. Okay, under there is what they can do. So the first thing is drag and drop. This gives you all of your signature initial boxes, gives you your X's, gives you your date, and so forth. So let me show you what each one does. So if you need initials, you have two options, initial here, initial optional. Initial optional, if I place this on my page, my client can hit the check mark to initial or the X to not initial it. So that it gives them an option. If I do initial here, they don't have a choice. They have to click on that box. So depending on what you have them doing, you might need initial here or initial optional. So if they have multiple selections, you might be doing initial optional. So I'm going to delete that one. Sign here, same thing. If you hit sign here, they have to sign. They have to click on this box. They hit sign optional. They can accept it or decline it. So again, depending on what it is, you want to make sure that you're putting in the correct one. I find most of the time I'm using the red one, the sign here and the initial here, that they're mandatory. Those are typically the ones I use the most. You have an option to initial group. So if there's an area they have to initial multiple things. So for example, I'm going to go to lead-based paint. That is going to give them an option to do multiple areas for initials. Now, if you're giving them a choice, then you may not be able to you'll have to use a different one. But if you are just having them initial, I can put in here Purchaser has received copies of all information above. Purchaser received the pamphlet. So what I do is I move one here and I move one here. So Mr. Buyer now is going to drop in his initials for these 2 lines. And then I'm going to go to the top here. I'm going to go to Mrs. Buyer, and then she's going to do the group as well, because these I need. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in these 2. Okay. And then under here, they have an option. Do they want to do a 10-day lead-based paint inspection? And I think in the 30-some years I've been in business, I've had a buyer do lead-based paint inspection once. But depending on the location, there's areas that they do them more on a regular basis. But for me, I don't see them as much. But if I want to give them an option, and typically I like to give them that option, I can do either the optional here and drop in for both of them. There's Mrs. Buyer, and then she can select. Now, the only problem with this is it doesn't allow them to select one or the other. So for example, she can accept both. So here's where I run into a problem. If she does this, that means she can say accept and accept, and both of them will be an option for her. Or what I can do is what I do like to do also is I like to select, I like my bullseye. So they can also initial next to these. I put initial in between, but the bullseye, what it does is it actually marks which one, and then I put initial right in the middle here, so it knows which one is selected. What the bullseye does is they have to select one or the other. It doesn't allow them to select both. Okay, so I do like using that. But again, it's, whatever one they prefer to do, they have that option. And we're going to go ahead and include an initial for Mrs. From Mrs. Buyer, and I'm going to drop in an initial for Mrs. Okay, and then we're going to drop in bullseyes for him. Actually, I'm going to keep it just for the one, because honestly, if I have one selecting it, I don't need both of them selecting it, because they made the option, and the other one's going to see it and sign it. Well, so that is my bullseyes. Now, when you select these boxes, you have a couple options. You'll notice you have a gear. The gear will allow you to make different selections, and then you have a trash bin, you can get rid of it. So for the gear, if I select this, I can add initials, I can change the signer. So for example, if I put in the wrong initials, I can select change signer. Now I can pick which one it's supposed to be. And let's go back to settings here. I can copy it, so I can make another initial boxes, or I can cut it. I can delete it, I can delete the group. My options here. And then the other thing I can do is my regular initials. You have an option for a date stamp, a time stamp, a name block, change signer, and then you can copy, cut, delete, and cancel. Now, I usually use my date stamps and my time stamps and my name blocks usually for my signature lines. So I'm going to take you to one of those so you can see how to do those. Okay, so I've got those in. Usually these, now for example, for this report, this house was built after 1977. So I'm actually going to remove these, and I am going to, because there's no copies of any information listed above, because there's no information above, but I am going to do my regular initials on these. I've got Mr. Buyer on here, and I'm going to Mrs. Buyer. I'm both, oops, change this one to Mrs. Buyer. If you don't want to give them the option, like I said, for this, and they can decline it, then we want to add, honestly, I'm going to add both actually, because I don't want to give them the option, both, because this, in this case, I will show that because I know that the house has been built after 1977. So now I can add them both. So these I want to make sure they sign both, because again, the optional will allow them to decline, and I don't want them declining that. But here, again, we just did our bullseye, and then they can remove that. Okay, so this is good on this one. So I'm going to go back and let's take a look at our signatures. Let me find something that requires a signature that's missing. Here we go. So my wire fraud form. So I need them both to sign this. I'm going to go to my signature line. So I've got Mr. Buyer. And again, as you change these boxes, you need to make sure you go to the right and change who the signer is, and then drag them over. So I've got Mr. Buyer. I want the date. So here's my date stamp. I'm going to drag that over here. And I don't have his name in here. So I'm going to go ahead and where it says signer name at the bottom, I'm going to drag his name, make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to drop that right underneath the line so it's printed right under there. Same thing for Mrs. Buyer. I'm going to pull her signature at the top here. And you can resize these. You notice there's circles here. I can resize them. I can drag over her date stamp. And the reason I use these date stamps are auto dates. So the minute they click on their signature, the date drops right in for you. So if they don't sign the same day, you don't want to just add the date, because then if they don't sign that date, then your dates are off. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my signer name. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in here. You can make it smaller if you want. And we're going to drop that right in here. Okay, so we now have both signatures in here. We have their dates and we have their names also printed underneath. So that's all set. Now, so for example, this one, it looks like I didn't have a template. So now if you have one set up, you want to create a template for it. I'm going to show you how to save this. I was just taking my time to make this look actually nice and not thrown on here. So let's walk through the template. So if you look at the right side of your screen again and go down to the bottom, you have right above your options, layouts. And you have an option to apply, which is the same thing we did the step prior to this. When we went to apply layout, you selected which form, you selected which layout, and it dropped in your boxes. Now we're going to save it. So I'm going to save as layout. Now when you do, it's going to open up everything. If you have a layout already in your templates saved for your Authentisign layouts, you're going to see this yellow highlight come up, and underneath it's going to say a layout exists already. You cannot save it with the same name. So what I would do at this point, if you did one that already exists, maybe the office did it, or we have one that Authentisign created for you, just change it. Put on there my template, or revised or something, so you created it, so next time you want to use it, you know which one to select. If it doesn't have anything with a highlight, that means it hasn't been created. So you can see wire fraud has not been created. So now, because I have this set up, I can, but what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to rename it, because the wire fraud we use for sellers and buyers. So I'm going to name it Buyers Wire Fraud. So it knows it's my buyers that need to be dropped in here. And because it does read buyer 1, buyer 2, seller 1, seller 2. So if I don't have sellers on here for my signature lines, it's not going to know, it's not going to add them in. I'm going to show buyers. And then when I do a seller listing one, then I'm going to add one for them. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Everything else, I'm going to uncheck, because I already have my layouts. I'm not making changes to those right now. I'm just doing the wire fraud one. Okay, so just the wire fraud. I'm going to hit save. So now when I come in next time, I can now apply that layout, and I can actually show you where it's at. So under layouts, again, you can do in the screen before, but I'm going to show you in here. It works in here as well, wire fraud. And then if I go down to Real Living Key, I should have a buyer, buyers wire fraud right here. So then I'll select it. I don't want to select it now. And if you select it again, what'll happen, it's going to drop a second box on top of the boxes you currently have. Now the issue is, if you don't realize it does that, then when it gets to your client, they're going to click on it to sign. They're going to click on the first box. Well, the second box is underneath. They can't click on the second box, and they'll keep telling them that they're missing signatures. So be really careful if you accidentally drop a box on top of a box, because you'll have to reset that signing and remove that box in order for it to complete the signing, or it will not complete it, and there's no way to select it when they're right on top of each other. So be very careful with those. Okay, that's your layout. So that was I think pretty much everything in here. You have an X. Let me show you the X's real quick. So that is selection. So for example, my disclosure regarding agency, you can see I have one in here. I'm going to remove it real quick. So mine came up. I pulled it as seller's agent just because I'm the listing agent, but if it's missing, I can put it either under one of my clients, typically is what I want. I'm going to pull that over. Buyer's agent, red means it's mandatory. So when it gets to my client, they're going to click on it, says that I'm a buyer's agent, I'm representing them. So that way they know that it's there and they'll sign for that. Okay. Initial pages. Your purchase agreement has multiple pages that need to be initialed. If your purchase agreement isn't set up in here, or you want to redo your own, for example, if you don't like the way it's set up, you can select initial pages, and you can select where the placement is. So if I'm doing my purchase agreement, I'm at the bottom of my document. I'm going to align left right now because I'm going to drop these boxes on, and I don't want them going on top of the ones I currently have. So I'm going to hit align left, and that's because the purchasers are on the left side anyways. It's my buyers that are signing, and I want both of their initials to go in these boxes. And I'm going to select which of my forms I'm going to use. So it's my buy and sell agreement. There's 6 pages on here. I'm going to just use the first 5 because I believe page 6 is my, I believe that is my wire fraud. So I don't believe I need initials. So I'm going to do 1 through 5. So you can initial as many pages as you want. It doesn't have to be all of them. And you can do multiple forms. As I scroll down further, you can now see I've got the sizes. So do I want large initial boxes, medium size, small? In this case, I'm going to make large ones just so they stand out so you can see where they drop them on. And I'm going to go ahead and select, and if there's boxes for myself, which there isn't, I would select that too, but I'll hit continue. And there they are. So you can see I wanted them to drop larger so you can see. So it put them on page 1, 2, 3, 4, and page 5. The page 5 I don't need, you can still remove them. So there they go. So I just removed those. So you can add multiple initial boxes for multiple pages, and that's a quick way to do it. And it's under your drag and drop initial pages. This allows you to put in a text box for your client to fill out. So some of our forms, I believe it is the exclusive right to sell, I believe, is where they can put in their mortgage company, their loan number, maybe phone number. There's a couple things. There's also a form where they can put in like this last 6 digits of their social security number. This is where this is very helpful. That box will open up. And obviously I don't have a listing one here, but it'll open up a section where they need to fill something out and they can click on that box and just type it in for you. I'm just going to drop it somewhere. Let's see where I can drop that. So we can look at it. It's just up here. I'll just drop it on this page here. So let's drop in that text box. There it is. You can drop it in wherever you want. And then, and you can see at the bottom, it says here, Mr. Loaded. So that means Mr. Buyer is the one that will be filling this out. If you want Mrs. Buyer to do it, you can click on those settings there. It does give you how many characters you can use. Is it a multiple line, transparent? Is it optional? So let's say it's not optional, turns red. It's now mandatory. If I have multiple lines, I would want to select that. If I want to change the signer, I can change that. If I want to make it bigger, I can move from here, copy, cut, delete it. I'm going to leave it on here just so you can see it pop up once we get to that point. Make sure it's red because when you first put it on there, it's optional. So when you're doing your exclusive right to sell or your data sheet, wherever those items are in that you need them to fill out, if it's blue, they can skip by it and they won't fill it in. So if you want to make sure they get those items, and make sure you change that. And again, that's under your little gear here, and make that change. Okay, so that is your text box. So we have gone through basically everything that's on here. So I think we're good. So let's take a look at our next step. That's our markup. Okay, so the markup tools, you can, like I showed you in the forms editor when we opened up a form, you can actually put lines through it, highlight things, and you can actually type still here. So if you have an item in here like your disclosures or an addendum that you didn't fill out or that's already a PDF, this is where you can actually type items in. So let's go ahead and let me show you these highlighting tools. Let's go back into my purchase agreement real quick. So for example, I left the seller paid home warranty in here. I forgot to remove it. I want to take it out. So I'm going to put a line through it. Now you have an option of a pen or a line. Now with a pen, you're going to draw freehand. So let me show you what this looks like. So unless you're an engineer and can draw really good straight lines, I would not suggest using this because I'm horrible. My lines are horrible and I cannot, with the mouse, cannot keep a straight line. Nothing. So again, it looks like you had a kindergartner draw all over your page. You don't want to do this. We want to remove that. We want to use a nice pretty line that is going to make it straight for me. So left click, drag it over. There I go. And then my little gear here, now I can make the size bigger. I can also change the color. So I want yellow, whatever I might want it, you can make changes right there. And then you can always delete it from here, the line tool. Then you have your highlighters. You've got this big marker here. So maybe I want to highlight maybe the excluded item here to make sure that they know we have excluded their theaters. Again, your gear is right here. I can change that to whatever color I want. I can change it to opacity and make it darker. Actually, this highlighter won't, the box will. So I have to cut or copy or delete from here, but I'm going to delete it because this box, I want to show you, and I tend to use this one more than I use the other one because opacity can be changed on this. It cannot be on your marker. There it is. So we'll go red, and then I want to make it darker so it stands out. There you go. So now I've highlighted that section so that they definitely see that. You also have the circle, same thing. You can also highlight an area here. Now, this works well if you've got a small area that you might want to cover with the circle. But I find if you're doing a paragraph, it's going to be hard because you kind of miss things here. So there's your circle. You have an option to change the color, whatever color you want to change it. You can change your opacity, make it darker. So I find I use this, which is your square here, the most, but they all give you that option for highlighting and making some changes to it. The last thing is going to be your initials, your text box. So let's go somewhere where I can add something on here. So maybe I get to this point and I don't want to go back because I completely forgot to add something in my other terms. So I'm going to go ahead, and so maybe I'm doing an escalation clause. Completely forgot to add that in there. Okay, so let's type in our escalation clause. So let's drop this in here. So I'm going to make my box bigger, and then I'm going to click in the box and I'm going to start typing. So I'm going to put in here, sir, and I'm finding more of these, more and more, like pay $1,000 over this offer amount, maximum, maximum price. I think I wrote 650, so we'll say 660, say, for example. A little far-fetched, but okay. So again, this is how you can type it in. So you can see now I've just added this. It'd help if I could spell today. Let's drop in my A. Okay, maximum price of 660. Now you can resize it. You can select your gear. I will want to make this bold. I just added it in. You can change though your font. To whatever you want to include. So I'll keep the Arial. Nothing's been signed yet to this point. So at this point, I really don't need initial lines because nothing's been signed. So it's not like my client has to initial this because he's already signed. So what I'm going to do is just, I can make it a little bit smaller if I want, and then it blends, but I do like to keep the same font. So it looks like it was typed in to begin with, that it wasn't an afterthought. Okay. So, and this, that might happen as you're trying to set up the signing and your client calls and says, you know what, I definitely want to increase it by the escalation. So, again, whatever the terms might be, they might be doing an appraisal guarantee, whatever it might be. But if you forget something, you still have an option to type it into your box by using this text box under here. Okay. So that is what that does. So these are all your markup tools. So we've added quite a few different things here. Under there, you have your zoom. So if you want to zoom in and out, you can. This is just pages. This will take you from page to page, just like it did when you're doing your forms editor. So you can actually click on this drop-down menu and I can go to whatever page. Since I have 20 pages in here, 21 now, since I had the pre-approval, I can quickly just click on this and it just scrolls for you quickly. That's all it does. This item here where they can scroll, the zoom, some of their markup items, those are things that they'll see, like when they're doing that seller's disclosure and you send it to them to fill out. Those are some items that they can see too when they're doing their signing. And I think we got through everything on this page. So I think we're good with all of this. The only other options left down here, you have an option to clear everything, which you don't want to do after doing all the work. You can exit, you can save your changes, and they can print and download, which they can do also. But again, this is going to be a PDF. Nothing signed yet. You're going to want to wait till all the signing is complete, which they will automatically get a copy once Authentisign is complete. So let's go ahead and get this sent because I see it's noon already and we're running out of time. So we're at the very last step here. So all you're going to do is select next. You have an option to customize your invitation email. So I usually like to open that up. It's going to show each one of the persons that you have selected, your contacts that's involved in the signing, and you can put a subject on. So I can put on here, offer package. I can put here, whatever you want to include. You can type in a message. And now, if you did include a CC, if you included send it to me as a CC, they don't have an option for a message, just a subject line. So usually I put in there, my buyer's offer for your listing on, or something of that sort, so they know once they get it. Okay, and then you just hit save, and we're going to send invitations. That's the last step. It's been sent. So now I'm going to go into my email because everything was sent to my email. So Mr. Buyer should be first. So I'm going to actually close that out. I'm going to go back to my email and give it a second here, and we should be able to see it. Meanwhile, I'll show you real quick since that has not loaded. I'm going to go back real quick to my online forms. And I just want to show you how it looks there so you can see where the transaction is at this point. So if you go back into the actual signing itself, which is my John Drive here, you can now select signings and you can click on this. So first of all, you see the Thunderbolt. That means it is in progress. That means I've sent it. If you click on it, this is where you can make changes to it and you can see where it's at. So first thing is I can see each one of my participants. I can see what they are. They're all signers. If they've opened it, it goes to authenticated. Once they sign it, this is also highlighted. If these are not, and they tell you I signed it, and you see just authenticated, that means they opened it, they never completed it, and that's why you don't see the sign part. Because once it does both of these and it highlights them, it goes to the next person. Also, at the top here, if they can't find it, you can resend. This envelope here will resend it to everyone again. So I just resend it just to make sure. It's probably going to have multiple in there. I can add a CC at this point too. I can reset it. Be very careful. Resetting means I am starting over again. So if you ended up adding maybe double signatures or you had to change something, you have to add a new contract in. Reset it. What that does is it doesn't remove your actual initial boxes and signature lines, but it removes anyone that's already signed. So then it brings it back to the point where we were before we sent it, where all your initial boxes and everything's in, and then you can walk through and send it over to your client or make your changes or change, the documents. So be careful with that. And this allows you to make a copy. If you look at the bottom here, original document, but you have history. So if you click on history, I've come back through here if I wanted to make sure I CC'd or if it went through. If you look at the very bottom, my last one here, signature request email sent. And you should be able to click on this and see, there it is. When you click those 3 lines, it opens up and I can now see it was sent to Mr. Buyer, my offer package, and then here's his actual Authentisign ID that already came in. So you can double check to make sure things went through. All right, I'm now going to go back and yep, there they are. So finally came through. So here's my first one. So here's offer package. All right. So I'm going to start the signing real quick. I'm going to close out my other one so it doesn't give me an error that I've got to start signing. So it tells them that there's 23 boxes that they're going to click on. There's 20 pages they're going through. They have signing blocks on it. Okay, and we're going to, first part is, it says it's in English. They have a signature. Now, I've used this buyer's name before for class test just because it's easy to use. I've created a signature for them. I can use it. Now, they have an option to select a font. There should be 5 different ones. So they can select that and hit save. Or if they have a touch screen or if they are on their phone, or they can use their mouse. They can actually left click and they can, and it does straighten it, actually do it right from their mouse. And I've done it. It doesn't look pretty at first, but it will straighten it out a little bit. And then they would hit right here, next, they would do their initials. So L for him. If they don't like it, they can hit clear. They can do it again, but they do have an option to do that. And it will show them on the next page. And again, they still can go back to their font. So tell them they can make their own signature if they'd like. They can print and download the consent and their agreement, but usually I tell them to just accept. It brings it to this page. Now, once they hit start, it's going to move all the pages for them. So I always tell them, if you need to read through it, go ahead and scroll through it and read it. You can also, under options, they can actually print or download a copy to look at, or they can do it at the end. Once they hit start, it actually highlights the box. They're going to click on it. You're going to click on it, and it keeps moving. You can see it moves the pages pretty quick. I explain to them, just you're going to be moving pretty quick through these, so it might be a little bit harder to read. But so here is this line. I made it mandatory, so now they can type in whatever they need to type in here, and now we'll let them move to the next one. Okay. If it gets stuck somewhere, tell them there's a next there. They can hit next. All right, getting almost done here. And at the top, as they're doing it, I'm 84% done. 16 of my boxes have been taken care of. The last 3. And now it gives them an option: complete signing, stay in review, or reset. You don't want to reset it because that clears all their signatures. So I'm going to complete signing. And if they want to create a password, they can. They don't have to. They can hit no thanks. Now what it will do is it's going to send some emails out. It will send an email to the agent, let you know that that signing has been completed. Then it's going to send the email to the next person. So here's the next email right here, signing invitation. This is Mrs. Buyer. And it's going to tell me that she needs to start signing. I'll walk through hers real quick. I just want to show you the end result, so where you can find everything. Oops, let's get rid of that. Just make sure you close boxes out. Yeah, I see it's still reading in my browser. So it doesn't let me. Let's see. It didn't come through. So I'm going to skip that one. For some reason, it keeps wanting to go back to the same one again. Let's see. It took. Okay, it's completed. So it's going to again keep walking you through the steps. The big thing that we're looking at is that we're looking at for here as they come through. Here it is. So here's Mrs. Buyer. That's what I was looking for. And we're going to do hers. I forgot I resent that twice, so it came in twice. If they do try to sign one, that if you send it multiple times, it will keep showing that was completed. Okay, so here's her. We're going to keep a font for her. Just want to walk through this real quick. And we're going to go ahead and select her initial boxes. And now, because Mr. Buyer's already initialed and signed, she will see his initials and his signature areas. When they haven't, they won't see any of it. They're only going to see their own. All right. And I think she's almost done. Here's where they can select. Receive 10 days to do lead-based paint inspection or waive it. So if they select that one, it's great. If they select the other one, it does remove the other one. And then she needs her initials. Done, complete signing. Here we go. Doesn't want a password. It's very simple. They can walk through it really quickly. It's just once you know where everything is, it's easier to explain it to them. Back. Okay, so signing updated. So an action has taken place. So here is my first one, and it tells me that my package for John Drive, the document was accepted, the date, his IP address, again, his computer, Mr. Loaded, and his Authentisign ID, which is going on the bottom of every page. And then we're going to go into the next one. As this loads, then I should be getting an update for Mrs. Buyer, and then I should be getting my signing. So that's basically it. So everything is done here, and then as an agent, like I said, you're going to end up with 2 emails with showing that both of them signed, and then another email that will show that it's been completed. So once everyone is signed, you'll get an email that will say the offer has been completed and your offer package, and then you can download right from there. But also, once it's done, let me go back into Authentisign. We're going to go back into Transaction Desk here, and we can see everything once it's completed. I'm going to open one that I currently have that's done, just so you can see the difference. Here will be my Westchester. Under your documents, you can find everything that's been completed. So I'll go to Documents now, and you're going to have that little lock on the left side of each one that's been signed. So this is going to appear. Now, here's the nice part of it. I've included 20 pages, and it shows it as one document as they're signing. But now it breaks it back down to each section. So if I did not include the listing agent for the offer, I can now come back in here and say, okay, well, now I can send them the offer. So now I want my purchase agreement that's been signed, and I'm going to send them the disclosure regarding agency relationship. If I have a pre-approval, whatever I want to include, I'll go to my basket, and I'm going to go ahead and hit email. And now I can email this to them directly, or I can download them right from here and just go from my actual email itself. And the way you download these is, remember those 3 dots at the right gives you options for each one. So I have to go individually, and I can download them right here. Or from the basket, you have a save as PDF, which is going to be, I don't want to merge them right here. But the only problem when you do multiple, it's going to download as a zip, and then you have to download them again. You'll have to open the zip. So a lot of times I find it's easier just to do individually download, and it'll drop those PDFs right on your page. Then I can go into my email, I can attach those and send that offer over to whoever I need. Okay, so that is everything that I can show you today that I have time for. There's so much more, but we will do separate classes where I can go deeper into these for you. But I think we covered quite a bit. I don't see any others, so I think we're all good. Everyone have a great day. Thank you so much for the webinar. Have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.